This is Gemara and Yevamos, Daf Tesvav. All the learning should be an incredible Schoshidach for Yisrael Chaim and Devar Shimon and Chayo Ifik Ben Teli Shalom and Libby Zahava. They should all find the Shidach Hagoyin Bekaroiv, as well as the learning should be Schazvru Hashem of Shalyos Ben Yefeda Shmuel Ben Tila Naftal Zim Ben Chlester Lechavim Bas Viva Basheva Vega. And we're holding on the bottom of Yudalin and Bees. Again, apologies for the lateness of yesterday's shir. We should be back on schedule, having the shirim up the night before. Says the Gemara, 5 lines from the bottom, continuing trying to prove whether Beis Shammai themselves paskin like Beis Shammai. I know that sounds funny, but we have a fundamental shayla brewing in yesterday's daf. There we have machlekes in all over Shas. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. Did Beis Shammai actually do like Beis Shammai? Or was because Beis Hillel the Raib, or because the Baskal, or other reasons, did Beis Shammai actually, they might have held like Beis Shammai, but in psak, in practicality, they will end like Beis Hillel. So Tashema, 5 lines to the bottom of Yudalin and Beis. Damar Rav Yechon ben Nuri, Heich halacha zu Rav Achas b'Yisrael. Says Rav Yechon ben Nuri, how should this halacha, the halacha of our Mishnah, the halacha in which brought out this entire machlek is Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, when we have the tzara of an Erevin that falls for Yibam, how should this halacha be Rav Achas b'Yisrael, be told to all of Klal Yisrael? If we go like Beis Shammai, Havlad Mamzer l'divrei Beis Hillel. If you go like Beis Shammai, which says you do Yibam or Chalitza, Beis Hillel holds that the Vlad is a Mamzer. Beis Hillel holds that's Chayvei Krisos. Not like divrei Beis Hillel. If you do like Beis Hillel, then Havlad Pogum l'divrei Beis Shammai. True, the Vlad's not a Mamzer, but the Vlad is Pogum. The Vlad is tainted, messed up according to Beis Shammai. So said Rav Yechon ben Nuri, what should we do? We're caught between a difficult situation. So says Rav Yechon ben Nuri, Bov and Itakin and the tzaros, we should implement for all the tzaros. Turning over to today's daf Tezvav and Aleph, Sheyuchol Tzais Lo Misyamois. Says Rav Yechon ben Nuri, they should do chalitza and then marry another woman, as Rashi says, and according to everyone, they will be kosher. And that was the suggestion that Rav Yechon ben Nuri said in order to solve this issue, this quandary between holding like Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel with regard to the tzara of the Arava. But says the Gemara, Lo yispiku ligmar zadavar ad shenitzvu asha, he was not able to implement this halacha before the moment passed, before he was able to actually do such, and rather they went with Beis Hillel. So continues the Gemara, Amar Lei Rashbag, says Rav Shimon Gamliel, Manasam the Tzaros Harishaynos Me'ata. So says Rav Shimon Gamliel, Rav Yechon ben Nuri, you're suggesting a new takana in Klal Yisrael. It didn't work. But what was your suggestion? Your suggestion was to do chalitza. Ask Rashbag, says Rav Shimon Gamliel, what about the earlier cases? What about the original tzaros? What are you going to do with them? If you're right, then you're saying that all those tzaros that got married, the kids are mamzerim. So now, based over this discussion between Rav Yechon ben Nuri and Rav Shimon Gamliel, the Gemara proves 4 lines from the top. Also, if you're going to tell me that Beis Shammai did like Beis Shammai, that Beis Shammai allowed the tzaras erva, the co-wife of those who are related to Yibam and Chalitza, I know to come Manasseh. Now I understand the statement of Rashbag, in which he said, what are we going to do? What should we do? We're going to have mamzerim for the earlier cases. It makes sense, because Beis Shammai indeed did like Beis Shammai, creating all these cases of mamzerim. But if you're telling me that really Beis Shammai never actually paskin like Beis Shammai, mein manaseh, what is the statement of Rav Shimon Gamliel? What's the problem with the original cases? They never actually did Yibam or Chalitza, so that's a raya. The Beis Shammai must have actually paskin like Beis Shammai. Amar Anacha Yitzchak loy nitzur chano. There's no raya. We do not need the case. The case of the tzara herself, And you know what Rav Shimon Gamliel said when he said Manasseh? Says the Gemara, Hanoch Sarah is the Beis Hillel. The Tzara, according to Beis Hillel, who went and married out without Chalitza, as Beis Hillel holds their potter from Yibam and Chalitza. LeBeis Shammai Chiyavid. According to Beis Shammai, what should we do now? Lichletzu, should they do Chalitza now? Because according to Beis Shammai, if a woman married, but there's someone awaiting Yibam and Chalitza, so right now, according to Beis Shammai, they come back and do chalitza. You can't do that. They're going to come repulsive to their husbands. Their husbands are saying, "What are you doing? You're going now and you're doing chalitza." And maybe you'll suggest limasam, let them become repulsive. What should we do? No, the way of the Torah are pleasant. We never say, "No, what can we do? Let them hate each other." That is not an option. Sniffer says the Gemara, there's no raya from here. The Beis Shammai indeed did like Beis Shammai. And we are back to the drawing board. So says the Gemara, attempt number, I don't know, we're up to 5 or 6 or something. Tashema, 10 lines down. Amar Rav Tarfon, says Rav Tarfon. Ta'avni. It says, Rav Tarfon, Te'avaini, I had a taiva, I longed for the day. Masai tava, itzara, isabas, liyadai. The tzara, the co-wife of my daughter, should come to my hand, says Rav Tarfon. Vesena, and I'll be able to marry her. The co-wife of my daughter, meaning his daughter, married his brother. And Rav Tarfon said, I can't wait to be able to marry the tzara of that co-wife. So says the Gemara, what do we seemingly see? We seemingly see that according to Beis Shammai, that Rav Tarfon ostensibly is holding like, that they actually did Yom Chalitza, and that's what Rav Tarfon was saying. I can't wait for that moment. Says the Gemara, no, say that what did Rav Tarfon mean? I can't wait for the co-wife to come, and I'm going to marry her off. Not that he himself will marry her, but rather he'll marry her off elsewhere. Says the Gemara, 1 second, he said to Eini, I have a taiva. I'm longing. That seemingly shows us that he was waiting to do something himself. Explains the Gemara, Lafukim Rav Yecham Nuri. This comes to preclude from Yecham Nuri, who said that no one should be able to do Yibam and Chalitza, but rather you should always do Chalitza, as we saw on the top of today's Amud, the top line, Chalitza Lois Habamois. So Rav Tarfon is saying that no, I would do nothing, I can't wait till to marry off this Sarah elsewhere. So again, no conclusive raya to exactly whether Beis Shammai did like Beis Shammai or not. So Tashema says the Gemara 12 lines down. The first one line is Tashema. There's a story with the daughter of Rav Gamliel that was married La'aba Ochiv, married to Rav Gamliel's brother, whose name was Abba, Umeis Bloibanim, and the brother died without children. V'yabin Rav Gamliel Esarasa, and there we have it. Rav Gamliel himself did Yibam. Rav Gamliel himself did Yibam to the Sarah. So clearly Beis Shammai does like Beis Shammai, and Rav Gamliel is going like Beis Shammai, and he himself did Yibam. What an incredible raya. Says the Gemara, really? V'tizra, do you really think Rav Gamliel David Beis Shammai? This can't be, because we know that he's not Elishayni Bita Rav Gamliel. So why in this story, if he's not Basik Beis Shammai, how could Rav Gamliel do Yibam to the co-wife? You know why? Because the daughter of Gamliel was the islandess Avoi. The daughter was an islandess, which means that there was never a marriage there. She wasn't able to have children. So it was never a case of a tzara, and that's why Gamliel was able to marry the tzara. Says the Gemara, 1 second, it can't be a Meniktani Seifa. The end of that brisa says, others say that the daughter of Rav Gamliel was an islandess. So says the Gemara, what are you going to say? So now we have multiple answers. Answer number 1, the difference between the two Tanakama and the second Shita is whether they knew originally that she was an islandess. If he knew originally that she was an islandess, then uproots the marriage from the beginning. Or no, he didn't recognize that she was an islandess till later on. According to Tanakama, who says that there is no Yibam over here, is the reason being he never knew that she was an islandess. According to second Shita, he knew she was an islandess, so the whole marriage was uprooted, and therefore he can marry the Sarah. My second Eretz, the difference is when he got something which reminds us, harkens us back to a few days ago, that he got married to this woman, and then he divorced her, so now there's no more relationship over here. So do we say that now because of the Shas Nefila, when the brother dies, Rav Gamliel is no longer related to this Sarah, therefore would be allowed to do Yibam or Chalitza or not? Teres number 3 says the Gemara, now the difference is, if they made a Tanai, and they did not uphold the Tanai, do we say that even though they had Tashmish, they had Biyah, that it's still, we have the ability to uproot that or not? That will be the Machlekes. But again, we do not have any conclusive proof whether Beis Shammai did like Beis Hillel or not. So Maser Rav Misharsha asks on the suggestion that Beis Shammai did like Beis Hillel, Ma'aser Rav Akiva Shekile Likid Esrog Bechad B'Shvat, a Mishnah that we had in the Masechta Rosh Hashanah. There was a story with Rav Gamliel that he picked an Esrog on the first of Shvat, V'nogba Beis Yisurin, and he put 2 Maasers on this Esrog. He didn't know when Maaser was. So Shmamina Asu. So says the Gemara, clear raya from Gamliel wasn't sure. Do we go like Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel? Obviously, Beis Shammai went like Beis Shammai. Explains the Gemara. No, Rav Akiva Gamri, not Rav Gamliel. Excuse me, Rav Akiva. Rav Akiva Gamri Yistabik Lev Yada. Rav Gamliel learned, but he didn't remember. Beis Hillel Bechad B'Shvat Amar or B'Tezrat Amar, and therefore he was machmer not because Beis Shammai did like his opinion, but Rav Akiva himself did not remember what was Beis Shammai and what was Beis Hillel's opinion. So Masavar is such another kasha. Ma'asav Yaldi Kalos Shel Shammai Hazaken, Gemara in Sukkah. The daughter-in-law of Shammai Hazaken gave birth to Piches. Is Ma'aziv of Zikach Agabe Mita. He took off the roof and he put on Schach B'Shul Katan. Shema Mina also again we see like Beis Shammai that they did in order to make sure the kid was inside the Sukkah. Says Gemara no Raya Asam Araya Omer. Seemingly like we said yesterday that there's no laces guy to do when there's another pshat. Says the Gemara similarly over here Asam Araya Omer. You know what the one that sees is going to say, La Fushe Avir Kav. They're just going to open the skylight, they're just going to get a little extra air, and no one's going to actually think that they're building a sukkah for the child, and therefore there is no raya from this case. Says the Gemara, another kasha. Masaver Zutra, 7 lines to the Bairam. Maisa Beshukas Yehu Shaisav Yishalayim. Was a story with the shoikas, the trough, the pipe connecting of a mikvah of Yehu in Yushalayim. By Sinekuva, the mikvah was connected by a holta mikvah. V'cholta Irish, Shayav Yushalayim, and all the tires that are in Yushalayim. Nasim al Gaba were put inside this mikvah. V'shalchu Beis Shammai v'archivuhu. Beis Shammai sent and they widened this hole connecting the mikvah to the bar. Beis Shammai Oimrim, why do they widen that? Shetipachis beruba. Beis Shammai held that it has to be broken open by roif. Utanan. And we learned in the Mishnah elsewhere, Ire mikvah is kishvei feres anoid, a concept that we've seen already, that if you have a connection between mikvah waters the size of a shvei feres anoid, which is a little skin bottle tube, be'oviyah ubechalol kishtei it's the size of 2 fingers that could turn around chazeres lemekayman, then it's going to be that they can rotate back and forth, then it's going to be a good mikvah. So Shema Mina also, meaning if Beis Shammai sent and they widened this pipe, even though we know that the Psak Halach is not that way, so you don't have to really widen the pipe as long as the Shoifaris Hanoi, the 2 fingers width is enough. So for the fact that they see they widen the pipe like Beis Shammai clearly shows us that Beis Shammai indeed paskin like his own shita. Says the Gemara no Raya Hasam over there as we turn over to the Zvavam and Beis Haraya Omer, someone who sees my that why are they widening the hole just to get more water inside, but not as it a mikvah per se issue. So again, as long as we could translate and interpret the story, not having to do with the psak halacha, it does not necessarily point out anything with regard to Beis Shammai doing like his own opinion. So Tashma, we try another item. When I was learning Torah next Rav Yechon HaChorni, I saw that they were eating bread with dry bread with salt in the years of a famine. When I told my father, Rav Yechon has nothing to eat. Amar Li, my father says, bring him olives. So I listened and I brought him some olives. Shochem. But when Rav Yochanan Achorani saw that the olives were wet, I don't need olives. I come and I told my father he doesn't want to eat the olives. Go and tell him the following: the barrel had a hole in it, but rather it got plugged up with the sediment. So what's going on over here is we know that when something becomes wet, it becomes a kabel tama. So when Rav Yochanan Achorani felt that these olives were wet, he was nervous. Wait, maybe they're makabel tama. So he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So what happened next? What happened next is that he said, I don't want to eat them. But when the message that came back was, there's a hole in the barrel. What does that mean? Because halacha is, if it gets wet, it's only makabel tuma if you want it to get wet. Kiyiti, kiyutan, you have to want it to get wet. But if you put a hole in the bottom of the barrel, do you want the moisture to collect inside? Of course not. You want it all to drain out. So they sent the message back. We didn't want the moisture to be inside. Happens to be, it happened against our will. So it should not have been mikabel tuma. So before we get to the raya, interjects the Gemara. Tonight we learned in the Mishnah, if we have a barrel of softened olives, Beis Shammai says you don't have to make a hole. Beis Hillel you have to make a hole. And everyone agrees that if you made a hole and the hole got stuffed up, then with sediment, then what happens? The jug is tar. So says the Braisa of Aval Bisha Talmud Shammai. Here it is. Even though Rav Tzadok was the Talmud of Beis Shammai, called Maisiv Lo Yasu El Ketiv Beis Hillel. He did all his deeds like Beis Hillel. So what do we see? So says the Gemara. So if you can tell me Beis Shammai did like his own opinion, I know Rabbi say. Now I understand the chiddush of Rav Tzadok that even though we paskin like Beis Shammai, there's a chiddush that here he's going like Beis Hillel and he's agreeing that it's not going to be makabel tama. Eliyamr lo yasu. Beis Shammai never did like his own opinion. My Rabu say, what's the chiddush? Beis Shammai never did according to his own opinion. So rather, from the fact that we saw there was a novelty in this brisa, must be that in general Beis Shammai does do like their own opinion. So finally, we have one raya that Beis Shammai does indeed follow their opinion. Tashema, we have another raya. Shalu as of Yeshua Tsaras Abbas. They asked Rav Yeshua, what is the story with the Tsaras Abbas? Mao. Amr lehem machlis Beis Shammai Beisil. V'lo k'divrei mi adu paskin. Amr lehem ne'mata machlis and Rosh bin Aaron gedolim. Why are you putting yourself between two great mountains? Bein shnei machlekes gedolim, two great debates. Bein Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. And said Rav Yeshua the following words: Mis yarei ani. I'm afraid to tell you. Shema yoratzu galgalti. Maybe they'll destroy me. Maybe they'll crush my skull. So you don't want to tell them whether we paskin like Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel. Avol says Rav Yeshua, Ani made lechem, I testify for you, al shtei mishpachas gedolos shel Yerushalayim, two great families, mishpachas Beis Savuah ben Achmi, mishpachas Beis Kupai ben Mekoshesh, shehem b'nei Tzaros. I'll tell you one thing, that these two families are descendants of Tzaros, who were Asar, who actually married without Chalitza, like Beis Hillel. Umehem, and from them, you know what happened? Kayhanim Gedailim V'Shamshu Agav Mizbeach, and they're working on the Mizbeach. End of story. So we see a whole long story of Yeshua telling them, I don't want to tell you anything. I don't want to get involved. I'll tell you one thing about two families. So says the Gemara from this Braisa, also, if you're going to tell me that indeed, that really Beis Shammai did like his own opinion, I understand why Rav Yeshua was nervous. Because really Beis Shammai paskin like his own opinion, and Rav Yeshua was nervous that if he says we really go like Beis Hillel, then they're all going to be mamzerim. Eliyamr lo yasu, but if Beis Shammai never did like his own opinion, I might cover his yarni. What is Rav Yeshua afraid about? That is point number one, in which we prove that clearly Beis Shammai must have paskin like their own opinion. Raya number one. Says the Gemara, 1 second. And even if you're right, fine. So Beis Shammai did their own opinion. My misyare ani. What was Rav Yeshua afraid of? Hamer Rav Yeshua in Mamzer El Mechayvim Misas Bezdin. Rav Yeshua's own shita is that what's a Mamzer? Not Chayvi Krisos, but Chayvi Misas Bezdin. So even if Beis Shammai did according to his own opinion, they're still not Mamzerim according to Rav Yeshua himself. So why Rav Yeshua himself? Was he nervous? Explains the Gemara. Gemara, Nei Nami the Mamzer Le'Have. True, they weren't a Mamzer, but Pagam Yahave. But they're still Pagam, they're tainted, they can't marry a Koyin. Mikal v'chaymer me'almana. We're going to conclude with this. Ma'almana she'ni isura noig b'chol bana, b'chol bina, and almana. There is no Isser. Excuse me. My almana she'ni isura noig b'kol. And almana is not an Isser that applies to everyone. It only applies to the Koyin Gadol. Yet bana pagum. Yet her son from a Koyin Gadol is pagum. Can't marry anyone else. Zu, this case she isura shava b'kol. This case, the case of an erva, the tzara of an erva, which everyone agrees is the same Isser. Kavu kabau. Excuse me. One more time. Certainly we should say that the kid is a pagum. So explains the Gemara, the reason why Rav Yeshua was nervous was because the kid is going to be a pagum. Fine, so that's the raya. But points out the Gemara something that seemingly didn't make any sense. They asked him about the tzara themselves. And what did Rav Yeshua answer? The child of a tzara is an issue. What's going on? That wasn't the question. So says the Gemara, really has two shaylas. Tzara mai. What is the kid with the tzara? What's the thing? Vimtim Salema, tzara is Beis Hillel. Bnei tzara is the Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai Mayu. What is the status of the children? Says the Gemara, L'maynaf Kamina, L'mifshat Vlad, Machzik Rushas L'Beis Hillel. Do we allow when who remarries the divorce according to Beis Hillel that only can be Asekuna? Mikar Mina Kal V'chaymer. Do we say Kal V'chaymer? Now we're going to stop over here. We'll pick it up from here as this is going to take us all the way into the next Amud. So far we have had a few rayas that Bishamay does go by his own opinion. We'll pick up from here and we'll go over this last story in the next year. B'siyata Dishmayo.